The morning sun painted the city skyline in gold as luxury cars lined the entrance of one of Houston's most expensive wedding venues. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of David Okoro's life. After 4 years of dating, countless sacrifices, and endless promises, he was finally marrying Sophia Williams. Friends and family had flown in from Nigeria, Canada, and the United Kingdom just to witness the occasion. Inside the bridal suite, Sophia smiled as makeup artists adjusted her veil. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect, because hidden inside a locked drawer in her apartment was a secret, powerful enough to destroy everything she had built. A secret she prayed would remain buried forever. Unfortunately for her, someone else knew the truth, and that person had already decided today would be the day the secret came out. David stood alone in the private dressing room, adjusting the cuffs of his black tuxedo as he stared at his reflection. Outside, the wedding venue buzzed with excitement. Guests were arriving. Music floated softly through the walls. Everything was finally coming together. His best man had stepped out a few minutes earlier to welcome some late arrivals, leaving David alone with his thoughts. For the first time that morning, he felt calm. After months of planning, arguments over seating arrangements, and endless preparations, in less than an hour Sophia would become his wife. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. David frowned and slipped the phone back into his pocket. A few seconds later, it vibrated again. Then a third time. His calm disappeared. "Who keeps texting me on my wedding day?" he muttered. Annoyed, he pulled out the phone and opened the message. The moment the image loaded, his stomach tightened. It was a photograph. A little boy, no older than 6, stood smiling beside Sophia. Her arm was wrapped protectively around him, and the look on her face wasn't casual. It was maternal. David's eyes narrowed. He zoomed in. There was no mistake. It was Sophia, his fiancée, the woman he was about to marry. Beneath the photograph was a single sentence. "Ask your bride about her son." The room suddenly felt smaller. His heart skipped a beat. A son? No, that couldn't be right. Sophia had never mentioned having a child. Not once during their 3 years together. Not during their late-night conversations. Not when they discussed starting a family. Not when they shared stories about their past. Never. David stared at the image again, searching for some explanation. Maybe it was her nephew. Maybe her cousin. Maybe someone was trying to ruin the wedding. Before he could make sense of it, another message appeared on the screen. This time there was a short video attached. His thumb hesitated over the play button. A strange feeling settled in his chest. The kind that warned him his life was about to change. Slowly, he pressed play, and what he saw next would shake him even more than the photograph. David stared at the photograph again and again, as if looking long enough would somehow reveal the truth. The boy looked about 8 years old. Dark hair, bright smile, a face filled with innocence. At first, David thought it was just another random child standing beside Sophia. But the longer he stared, the more uneasy he became. Something about the boy felt familiar, disturbingly familiar. His eyes, the shape of his face, even the way he smiled. David couldn't explain it, but a strange feeling crawled up his spine. His thumb hovered over the screen as he zoomed in further. "What is this?" he whispered. His pulse began to rise. Then another message appeared. Another photograph. David opened it immediately. This one hit harder. The image showed Sophia at what looked like a birthday party. Balloons filled the room. A large cake sat on a decorated table. Family members surrounded them, laughing and smiling for the camera. But David barely noticed any of that. His eyes were fixed on Sophia. She was kneeling beside the boy with one arm wrapped tightly around him. Not the way an aunt would. Not the way a family friend would. Not the way someone casually posing for a picture would. It was the protective embrace of a mother. The kind of embrace that came naturally. The kind that couldn't be faked. David felt his throat tighten. His breathing grew heavier. His chest rose and fell rapidly as 100 thoughts crashed into his mind at once. 3 years. 3 entire years together. 3 years of conversations. 3 years of trust. 3 years of planning a future. And not once had Sophia mentioned a child. Not once. He remembered the countless nights they had talked about marriage, the vacations they planned, the apartment they wanted to buy, the children they hoped to have someday. Every memory suddenly felt different. Every promise now carried a question mark. David rubbed his forehead and paced the room. No, there had to be an explanation. Maybe someone was trying to destroy the wedding. Maybe the photographs were old. Maybe the boy belonged to a relative. Maybe there was something he didn't understand. But if that was true, why had Sophia never mentioned him? Why keep it hidden? Why wait until the wedding day? The phone vibrated again. David froze. A cold feeling settled in his stomach. Slowly, he looked down at the screen. A new message had arrived. Only 2 words. There's more. David's heart pounded against his ribs. His fingers suddenly felt numb. Whoever was sending these messages wasn't finished. And deep down, he feared that whatever came next might destroy everything before he even reached the altar. Across the church parking lot, a woman watched quietly from inside a red sedan. Her name was Maya. Nobody at the wedding knew she was there. Nobody knew she had spent years searching for answers. And nobody knew she was the person sending those messages. Today wasn't about revenge. At least that's what she kept telling herself. Today was about exposing a truth hidden for nearly a decade. As guests laughed and celebrated, Maya opened an old folder resting on the passenger seat. Inside were photographs, hospital records, and letters. Evidence. Enough evidence to destroy lives. The only question was, who would survive once the truth exploded? Inside the bridal suite, Sophia sat before a large mirror surrounded by soft lights. Her wedding dress flowed elegantly around her as makeup artists and bridesmaids moved quietly through the room. To everyone else, she looked like the picture of a happy bride, calm, excited, ready to begin the next chapter of her life. But behind the smile reflected in the mirror, something felt wrong, very wrong. Her smile slowly faded as she glanced toward her phone resting on the table. No notifications, no calls, no messages. She picked it up anyway and checked the screen again. Nothing. Yet the silence itself felt unsettling. Too silent, too quiet. A strange knot tightened in her stomach. For weeks, she had been living with a feeling she couldn't shake. The feeling that someone was watching her. Someone who knew things they shouldn't know. Small incidents had begun happening months ago. An unfamiliar car parked outside her apartment. Unknown numbers calling and hanging up. Strangers who seemed to recognize her face. At first, she convinced herself it was paranoia. Wedding stress. Nothing more. But the feeling never disappeared. Instead, it grew stronger with each passing day. Sophia swallowed hard and looked at her reflection. For a brief moment, fear flashed across her face. Then the door opened. Her maid of honor stepped inside carrying a warm smile. "You okay?" she asked. "The guests are arriving. Everyone's excited." Sophia quickly straightened her posture. The nervous expression vanished. A practiced smile replaced it. "Perfect," she replied softly. The answer came easily. Too easily. Because she had spent years pretending everything was perfect. Years hiding doubts. Years burying memories she never wanted to revisit. Years convincing herself that some truths were better left in the past. Her maid of honor smiled and left the room again. The moment the door closed, Sophia's smile disappeared. She lowered her gaze to the floor. Her hands trembled slightly. Because she knew she wasn't being honest. Not with David. Not with herself. Deep down, a terrifying realization was growing louder. Secrets never stay buried forever. No matter how carefully they're hidden. No matter how many years pass. Eventually, the truth finds a way back into the light. And today, on the day she was supposed to become David's wife, she could feel it happening. The walls around her carefully constructed life were beginning to crack. And she feared they were about to come crashing down completely. David's phone vibrated again. This time the attachment was a DNA report. His hands shook as he opened it. The result made his blood run cold. The child in the photograph wasn't just connected to Sophia. The report suggested the boy's biological father was someone David trusted completely. Someone sitting inside the church at that very moment. Someone who would soon stand beside him during the ceremony. David looked toward the chapel doors. His chest tightened. The betrayal was becoming bigger than he ever imagined. David slowly raised his eyes. His gaze landed on Marcus, his best friend, his business partner, the man who had been like a brother for years. Impossible. Yet suddenly every strange moment from the past began making sense. The The late-night phone calls, the awkward conversations, the uncomfortable silences whenever Sophia and Marcus were together, the way they sometimes avoided eye contact when he entered a room. Small things he had ignored for years now felt impossible to dismiss. David desperately wanted the evidence to be fake, but fate wasn't finished with him yet, because the biggest secret hadn't even been revealed. Maya sent one final document, a handwritten letter. Sophia had written it years ago. David recognized her handwriting immediately. His eyes scanned the page, then stopped. The words shattered him. Sophia admitted the child was hers, but the father's identity wasn't Marcus. It was someone else. Someone far more shocking. Someone nobody would ever suspect. David's entire understanding of reality collapsed. David could barely breathe as he continued reading Sophia's letter. The words blurred before his eyes. He read them again and again, hoping he had misunderstood. But the truth remained unchanged. Marcus was innocent. The child's father was not his best friend. It was someone far closer, someone David had trusted his entire life. His own older brother, Michael, the successful businessman everyone admired, the man who had flown in from Atlanta 3 days earlier to attend the wedding. David felt his stomach twist. Suddenly memories returned. Michael always seemed unusually protective of Sophia. He always defended her, always found excuses for her mistakes. At the time, David had interpreted it as kindness. Now it looked very different. The horrifying realization settled in. His brother had hidden a child for 8 years, and neither of them had told him. But another question remained. If Michael was the father, why had Sophia hidden the truth? And why was she marrying David? The answers were waiting, and each answer was more dangerous than the last. David immediately called Maya. For the first time, she answered. Her voice was calm. Too calm. There's something else you need to know. David's heart pounded. What? Several seconds passed. Then Maya revealed a secret that changed everything. Years ago, Sophia had become pregnant while dating Michael. When she told him the news, he panicked. His career was taking off. A child would destroy the image he had worked so hard to build. So he convinced Sophia to hide the pregnancy. The child was secretly raised by relatives. Only a handful of people knew. David felt anger burning through him. But Maya wasn't finished. The reason Sophia agreed to marry you wasn't love. The words hit like a bullet. David froze. What are you talking about? Maya took a deep breath. Michael is dying. Silence. Doctors gave him less than a year. David's world stopped. Maya continued. Sophia believed marrying you would secure her son's future inheritance. For several moments, David couldn't move. Everything he believed about his relationship suddenly felt fake. Every kiss, every promise, every dream had all been built on a foundation of lies. The wedding music finally began. Guests rose from their seats. Excited whispers filled the church. Phones lifted into the air. Cameras started recording. The large doors slowly opened. Sophia appeared. Her white gown sparkled beneath the lights. She looked breathtaking, like the perfect bride. But only David knew the storm raging beneath the surface. As she walked toward him, Sophia noticed something strange. David wasn't smiling. His eyes looked cold, distant, almost unfamiliar, and that alone made her steps falter for a split second. A whisper of fear crept into her chest. Something was wrong, very wrong. Meanwhile, Michael sat motionless in the front row. His face had turned pale. His hands gripped the edge of the seat tightly. Somehow, he knew the truth had finally reached David, and he knew there was no escaping what would happen next. Sophia finally reached the altar. The officiating minister smiled warmly. The guests smiled back. Everyone expected a beautiful ceremony, a moment of joy, a moment of unity. Instead, David took a step back. Just one step, but it changed everything. The church fell silent. The music faded as if it had never existed. Confused murmurs spread across the room like smoke. Phones slowly lowered. Even the air felt heavier. Sophia stared at him, her smile disappearing. David? She whispered. Her voice cracked slightly. His expression remained steady. Too steady. His voice was calm, almost too calm. Before we continue, he said slowly, I have a question. The room grew completely still. Not a sound. Not even a breath. David looked directly into her eyes. Why didn't you tell me about your son? Gasps erupted across the church. A wave of shock moved through the guests. Sophia froze. Her entire body went rigid. Her face lost all color. For a moment, she looked like she might collapse. Michael immediately lowered his head. His jaw tightened as he avoided every eye in the room. Whispers exploded everywhere. Son? She has a child? No one knew. The minister stood speechless, unsure whether to continue or stop everything. David didn't look away. He continued. Or should I ask, he said, his voice sharpening slightly, why you hid who the father really is? That sentence landed like a strike. Sophia's lips parted, but no words came out. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. She gripped the edge of the altar for support, shaking. The secret she had protected for years had finally been exposed in front of everyone. And now there was nowhere left to hide. No explanation that could soften it. No lie that could fix it. Only silence. And the beginning of everything falling apart. Just when everyone believed the scandal couldn't become worse, the church doors slowly creaked open. Every head turned at once. Even the minister paused mid-breath. Maya walked inside, slowly, confidently, like someone who had already lived through the worst pain imaginable and no longer feared what came next. Her heels echoed through the silent church. One step, then another. The room watched in stunned silence. Whispers died instantly. Phones were forgotten in laps. David stared, his expression tightening. Sophia stared, her face still frozen from shock. And Michael looked terrified, like a man who had just seen his past return to destroy his present. Maya stopped halfway down the aisle. She didn't smile. She didn't hesitate. She simply looked at them all. And then she spoke. Her voice was calm, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire room. Years ago, she had been engaged to Michael. They had planned everything together. A wedding, a future, a life, a family. But it all collapsed the moment Sophia entered their lives. Michael had secretly abandoned Maya after discovering Sophia's pregnancy. No explanation, no closure, just disappearance and betrayal. That moment shattered Maya completely. For years she carried the pain alone. For years she forced herself to move on while carrying questions no one answered. But silence has limits, and truth has timing. When Maya later discovered that Sophia was preparing to marry David while still hiding everything, something inside her broke differently. Not with grief this time, with clarity. The lies had gone far enough. The church erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped. Some guests defended Sophia, insisting there must be a misunderstanding. Others turned on Michael, accusing him of cowardice and betrayal. A few even questioned Maya's motives, unsure whether she had come for justice or revenge. But above all the noise, one truth became undeniable. Everyone standing in that church had been touched by deception, and none of their lives would ever remain the same again. David looked around the church one final time. The decorations, the flowers, the guests, the future he had imagined, all gone, destroyed by secrets, destroyed by betrayal, destroyed by choices made years before this day. Sophia stood crying. Michael remained seated with tears running down his face. Maya silently watched. The minister waited for someone to speak. Finally, David removed his wedding ring. The sound of the metal hitting the altar echoed through the silent church. He looked directly at Sophia. I loved you. His voice trembled. But I don't know who you are anymore. Sophia broke down completely. David turned around, then walked away. No vows, no kiss, no marriage. The wedding ended before it truly began. As guests slowly left the church, nobody spoke, because they had just witnessed something unforgettable. A wedding that stopped at the altar, a family destroyed by secrets, and a truth that arrived only minutes before forever. What would you have done if you were David? Would you have cancelled the wedding or forgiven Sophia? Drop your answer in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more shocking stories filled with twists, betrayal, and unforgettable endings.